This is Talking Drupal, a weekly chat about web design and development from a group of people with one thing in common. We love Drupal. This is episode 329, The Penguin Core. Welcome to Talking Drupal. Today we're talking about the Penguin Core with Stu Keroff and Students from the Penguin Core. Stu is a social studies and technology teacher at Aspen Academy in Savage, Minnesota. He is the founder of the first two Linux clubs in Minnesota, the Community School of Excellence Asian Penguins in St. Paul, and the Aspen Academy Penguin Corps. He's spent the last 10 years teaching kids how to use Linux and open source software. Stu, thank you for that. Both of the clubs he started made a mission out of recycling computers with Linux to give to needy students. As a result, he has had a hand in distributing over 700 computers. Wow. He has written several articles about the school-based Linux clubs and is the author of the Linux Club Guide, which can be found at www.linuxclubguide.com. He and his wife have been married for almost 26 years. Congratulations on that as well. And have two adult children. Stu and Students, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
So Stu has 5 students with him today. Did I count that right? I did. There we go.
Mm-hmm. You are correct.
Rania is in grade 7. Michael is also in grade 7. Cam is in grade 7. Jeffrey is in grade 6, and Nithya is in grade 6 as well. So welcome all of you, and we appreciate you coming to join us today.
Well, thank you for having us.
So listeners, you may already know this, but if you don't, I'm John Picozzi, and today joining me as usual, Stephen Cross. Stephen, what's going on with you? Is that a tan I see?
Nah, I don't join you as usual. I mean, thank you for that. So I'm happy to be here for my third guest host week in this past month. So John's asking about my tan because I don't have one. But he's referring to my update, which is I did spend the holiday in Arizona visiting my daughter, which was awesome. So we went there we flew out on Christmas Day. She lives in Phoenix, and spent the week with her, visiting and seeing what her life is like over in Phoenix, Arizona. The funny thing is coming from the Northeast, as I'm based in here in Rhode Island, the climate was not much different. They had a unusually cold spell in Phoenix. So I think our temperatures were about the same, low 50s for the week. So my Christmas photos from Phoenix were like people doing hikes, wearing like winter coats and being bundled up. And but it was good. It's always great to you guys aren't quite there yet with your kids yet, but as you have adult kids, I think Stu has adult children, and you see them grow up and they kind of build their lives of their own. And it's super fun to go out and see them in their environment and see how they live. So it was a great time out in Phoenix. It's the third time I've been there since Corona. She moved there when coronavirus started. So it's my third trip out during coronavirus. And it's easy to do social distancing and separating when you're visiting. It's difficult when you're traveling, but it looks like I've managed three trips there without getting infected, which is awesome.
There you go. Welcome back. Arizona. Phoenix is lovely. Arizona is lovely. I love going out there. Nick, what is going on with you this week?
Not too much. Enjoyed my week off last week, and our patrons will know this, but we were talking about chip shortages before the show. And last week I had talked about how I finally gotten my hands on a new graphics card to put together a new computer. And so I was very excited on my week off. All the parts came in early, put everything together. And in a past life, I used to build computers and repair them. So something I've done dozens and dozens of times, and put everything together. and it wouldn't post. Would not turn on. I got the DRAM light, so student listeners will know that usually means there's a problem with the RAM. So I just got a different compatible RAM at a different speed, because that's usually the first thing, and it still didn't work. So I suspect there's something wrong with either the CPU or the motherboard. So I'm currently waiting.
Did you static charge your computer? Did you forget to anchor yourself?
Absolutely did not.
Okay.
I mean, I don't have one of those static cling things, but
Nick, this was a computer
before.
This computer was running before you put the graphics card in, right?
No, I mean, I did. One of the problems is it's the DRAM light, so the video card really has nothing to do with it, because it doesn't even try booting that up. But I did try turning it on without the graphics card just to see if it got past that issue. And the chip that I bought doesn't actually have integrated graphics. This is really done.
Okay, so,
the
chip the motherboard doesn't have graphics on it already. Okay.
The chip doesn't support. The motherboard has graphics, but the chip doesn't support integrated graphics.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So unfortunately, it's one of the worst feelings. I have all the parts; they're mostly together. It's not working. I'm waiting on a return. But hopefully next week I'll be able to put this together. And
all right, well, we will look forward to that update to see if and when. It's like a to be continued. Will the computer get built? Will the DRAM light go off? Find out next week on Talking Drupal. Okay, Stu, what's going on with you this week? You have a note here. You're back to school. Everybody's back from vacation.
Yep, we had our 2-week winter break. All these kids we all got to have fun with family and friends. Yesterday was the first day back, and as I recall, it was really cold yesterday morning too. And it'll get cold again later this week. But first classes start, then this, and the Penguin Corps grade 6 cohort, we're going to try to have our first meeting back during recess and advisory today. And then the 7th and 8th grade cohort, they'll have their meeting tomorrow. So
good deal.
Get back up and running.
There you go. Getting back into the swing of things. Good to see that you're all in person. Okay, so we're going to do a lightning round here of name, grade, and favorite thing. One favorite thing. Okay, and we're going to start with Rania. So you go first.
My name is Rania. I'm in grade 7, and one thing I like is walking up and down the stairs 10 times a night to get me to sleep.
Awesome.
My name is Michael. I'm in 7th grade and I like sports.
There you go. What's your favorite sport?
Basketball or swim.
Basketball or swim. Nice.
I'm Cam, and my favorite thing is to do is I like working on cars and stuff.
Working on cars. What's your favorite car?
Ford Mustang.
Nice.
Which year?
1986.
Nice. There we go.
My name is Jeffrey. I'm in 6th grade, and my favorite thing to do is play soccer.
Nice.
My name is Nithya. I'm in grade 6, and my favorite thing to do is read.
Read. What types of books?
Sometimes I can read fantasy, but too much fantasy I don't like too much fantasy.
Got it. So our listeners know that I do not read frequently, but when I do, it's always usually work related. It's never nonfiction. So I applaud you for getting into that. Okay. So we have a jam-packed schedule here. So we're going to skip our module of the week this week and jump right into our primary topic, which is talking about the Penguin Corps. So Stu, could you just give us kind of an overview, very brief overview of like, what is the Penguin Corps?
The Penguin Corps is a Linux users group. What makes it unique is that it's set in a middle school. So these kids learn how to install, configure, and use Linux and open source software. So they're gaining skills, having fun. And then as an extension of that, we took on having the kids learn how to recycle and refurbish used computers, making them work again with Linux. And we've been using those to help other students.
computer card right there.
Yeah. And then we've got our computer cards back there and the tables back there and stuff.
And how did the Penguin Corps get started? Like when did the genesis come? It sounds like you've started a couple of these types of clubs.
Okay. The Penguin Corps started in 2019 when I started working at Aspen Academy. Prior to that, I was at a school, another charter school in St. Paul called Community School of Excellence. Now that is a Hmong charter school. So the name of that club, we call it the Asian Penguins because, well, it was pretty obvious. Almost all the kids were Asian. And over the 8 years that I worked there, we started something almost by accident. And then it grew up to be, kind of a club and then a movement. And we were working on trying to close that school's digital divide by recycling computers and then handing them out to families that couldn't afford them. And after 8 years, I started working here at Aspen Academy. And, as soon as I walked in the door, I was like, this place ought to have a Linux club. So we started one in the after school program. Started off with 14 kids that first season. And then from there, let's see here, last spring, even in the midst of all the COVID stuff, we had gotten up to 46 students. And
Oh, wow.
And of course, the COVID stuff made our mission even more crucial because with these kids, we actually took on helping to close our school's digital divide so that all the kids at school had a device that they could use for distance learning at home.
I'm curious if any of you guys would like to share what made you decide to join the Penguin Club then. Why don't you start, Cam?
Yeah. So when I was in third grade, I wrote to the dean of the school and I wanted like a computer and robotics club. And then when I was in fifth grade, when the club started, I saw that there was a computer club and I'm like, well, I want to join that. So I joined it. And like Mr. Keroff said, there was just 14 kids and it was kind of fun just messing around with computers. But then I think it was on my birthday, they announced it as a pandemic. So we just had to get a bunch of computers out.
Yeah.
Oh.
That would be March of 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how about you, Ronnie? What made you decide to join the Penguin Corps?
One day they were just passing out papers like come join the Penguin Corps like in 2020. And I looked at the paper and I thought my mom wouldn't want to pay for this. It's $70. This is too expensive. So then I told my mom like a week after I got the paper and already threw it in the garbage can. And she said, I would totally take you to that club. I want you to be a smart, efficient woman. And I want you to go to Harvard. And so when another form released, like a few months later, I gave the paper to her and she made me join the club. I also liked it because it could involve computers and I don't like writing on pieces of paper and using pencils because my handwriting is bad.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I'm a little curious about the Penguin Corps and referencing it as a computer club. Is there a computer club in the school that's separate from Penguin Corps? Or is it the same thing?
We really don't have, we've never actually had a computer club other than the Penguin Corps.
Okay.
This was this school's first stab at having a technology club. It just happened to be that since I was the one leading it, we were going to build it all around open source.
So before I move on to the next question, did anybody else want to chime in on why they joined? Go ahead.
I joined because I really like computers, as well as my mom wanted me to try something new, and I really enjoy it.
Very cool. Go ahead. Check.
I joined it because like a bunch of my friends were doing it, and I just wanted to have fun.
Sounds good. And you too.
Same thing as Jeffrey. There was a couple kids in my grade that were joining parkour, and it sounded interesting, so I joined too.
Very cool. So shifting gears a bit, back to something that you mentioned, Stu, like it sounds like when you first got hired, it was something that you wanted to kind of continue from your previous position. Did you was it difficult to get the school to kind of sign on and support it? Did you have to sell it, or was it kind of just once you suggested it, they were on board?
Believe it or not, I'm still kind of in shock at the lack of roadblocks we ran into getting this thing up and running. I met with the principal during the summertime when we were getting ready for fall, and just mentioned, I think that this would be a benefit to the school. And she was like, well, we have an after-school program with extracurricular clubs. Maybe it would fit there. And then it seemed like every time I bring an idea to the table, they were just saying yes to it. I was, after a while, I was like, this usually doesn't happen. It was like, so it was like, okay, we want to start this club. Yeah, that sounds good. We want to recycle computers because you probably have some kids that go to school here that need them at home. Yeah, okay, that's a good idea. And I'd like to take these kids to go and speak at a conference so they can teach teachers about technology in class. Okay, that sounds pretty good. And the school has been incredibly supportive and still are.
It's good to hear.
Stu, just out of curiosity, you had started a program like this at a previous school. You've started it here. Are you aware of any other programs similar to this, across the nation or across in the world? Or is this pretty new phenomenon?
There really are not too many clubs that exist in schools, and I'm going to kind of narrow it down to like public and charter schools because that's what I'm more familiar with.
Sure.
But I haven't found too many other examples. There are a handful of schools that were adopting using the Floss Desktops for Kids curriculum that the Open Source Initiative published, and that was a way of getting kids to experience using open source. I remember communicating with a librarian in New York that was doing a similar thing. But as far as the way that we do this is pretty unique. We are trying to help a couple other schools get clubs started at their campuses. But as of right now, it's pretty rare.
Cool.
Stu, you mentioned a few minutes ago that there was no computer club, and that because it was you who was starting it, that you were going to do this with Linux. And I'm curious about Linux as a choice. Clearly, to me, it's an obvious choice as an operating system to work with. But maybe you could talk a little bit about why Linux was the primary operating system for your club.
Well, it comes down to, the word free, and, the whole, free as in candy and free as in freedom. The fact that we could get software that we weren't going to have to pay for and have to mess with license keys and things like that meant that I could turn around and hand a flash drive to a kid and say, you're going to install the OS on this computer over here and take it through the process beginning to end, install, put the apps on, configure, get that thing ready to use. And something I've mentioned to the kids numerous times is the free as in freedom. If you screw something up, you can start over. It's not that big of a deal. And because these things are released under an open source license, we can put it on as many computers as we want to or need to. Now, when we came up to the pandemic, that was crucial. And it was because of that we were able to do what we did.
Now, you're working at Aspen Academy. I'm not sure if we've mentioned that yet, but did the school use Linux before this club was established? And is Linux actually used in the classrooms there outside of the club?
Oh, they hadn't even heard of it. Yeah.
Okay.
They had no idea what it was. They just knew that, oh, well, Mr. Keroff is doing this thing with computers and it doesn't sound like it's going to cost us much. So, okay, let's go ahead. And then it kind of just took off in increments faster than we thought it would, but it just happened in increments. It had started, and as far as it being used in classes, well, yeah, in fact, when I started working here, I had spent my summer recycling a bunch of laptops that I had intended to use in my next classroom. That became my classroom set. So right away, we are going to have at least one teacher in the building who is using Linux, and that was me. Now, the following year, I switched to some different hardware, but I'm no longer teaching social studies. I'm the tech integrationist for the building now. And the woman who took my room got those laptops. So now she's using them. Kim?
Yeah, because before you came, I remember, I think it was like third and fourth grade, we had they took regular laptops and they stuck like a fake Chrome OS on them or something.
Oh, yeah. We had all over the building, we had the IT person we contract with, wonderful guy, by the way. He had picked out this stuff called Cloud Ready, which is made by Neverware. And it turns a regular laptop into a Chromebook. And that was a cheap way of being able to get some more life out of some machines and put them around the building pretty affordably. But we still had to pay for a license for that. Now, when we just started using just pure Linux, and we're using Ubuntu right now, then we didn't have to pay anything at all. The other social studies teacher, we set him up with a set. Now the math teacher asked for some computers, so we gave him some. And then when we came back in the fall, all of the teachers in elementary wanted 3 computers for their rooms. So, well, geez, stop and do the math. It sounds like we've got Linux now in 26 rooms in the building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Something like that. Yeah.
So I have two follow-up questions. One for you, Stu, and then one for the kids. So how, and this might be a little outside baseball, but like as far as like locking down and permissioning Linux to those, I think you just said 26 classrooms, right? Has that been a challenge? And like, can you give us just a little bit of an overview of how that's being done?
Well, actually, just the opposite. We've been kind of taking a tip from Charlie Reisinger in Pennsylvania. I'm not sure if any of you know who he is, but he's the IT director at the Penn Manor School District in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. He spearheaded a one-to-one laptop program there using all Linux and open source software. And he took the approach of just making each student the administrator of the machine that they were handed. So we, as far as locking down the machines, really it's our firewall on our Wi-Fi really is of what effectively is keeping kids from going where we don't want them to go. But as far as the machine themselves, we tend to be pretty loose with that, and for the most part that has worked.
Got it. Okay. So more network
Exactly.
Network gates than actual system gates. That makes a lot of sense. So correct in saying the kids are obviously exposed to Linux. They are exposed to Macs and they're exposed to PCs. Is that accurate?
Yeah, to a certain extent. We don't have that many Macs here. And generally when we get one in, we convert it to Linux anyway. So
Yeah, there's one
there's one behind us. Yeah.
Okay. So let me ask this to the students. Who do you all prefer Linux to those other operating systems, or does somebody prefer something different than the Linux system? Why don't we just start, Rania? Why don't you go first, and then we'll work our way down the line there.
I prefer Linux because it's like easy to install apps when you can't go to the site. Like I once tried to install Blender off the site, but it didn't work. So I had to like go into Linux and do it like in the terminal window. It was like really simple since you could like download things and like it's not that hard really. But then basically it's just easy to like install things and it's easy to find what you need.
There you go.
Not like complicated.
Okay. Michael, what about you?
I like Linux as an operating system for like the most part. It's just that for like gaming, for me, it's easier on Windows. It's more loose and
Got it.
yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Cam, what about you?
Same thing for me. I like Linux as an operating system, but for like my gaming PC, I have Windows on it simply because a lot of games I want to play and a lot of these like AAA games are all Windows locked because of the anti-cheats they use.
Guys, I get it. I come from a Mac background. Like I'm right there with you.
Let me just chime in here really quick before we move on to Jeffrey and Nithya. I just want to say, if it's on Steam, most AAA games will work on Linux. Like I'm on Ubuntu right now, and I play Doom, I play Wolfenstein. All those games, they work now with Proton. You just need a compatibility layer. So most AAA games work. The one caveat is VR, virtual reality games, unless it's built by Valve, generally requires Windows still.
Okay, last two. Jeffrey, Mac, PC, or Linux? What's your preference?
So yeah, basically the same thing as Cam and Michael. Like I like Windows for games, but I like Linux for like schoolwork.
All right. Nithya, what about you?
I prefer Linux because it has so much more options and it's more flexible to me at least. And yeah.
All right.
I'm curious for the students too, because kind of flipping the previous question that Stephen asked kind of to you guys, he had asked if the school had been using Linux previously or heard of it. I'm curious if any of you guys had heard of Linux before joining the club.
Not really. I didn't really know of Linux. I knew that Android was like more open source and it was more free, but I didn't like realize why or how it was.
Okay. How about you, Rania? I saw you.
The only things that I knew before that were like Windows, Apple, and like my Fire tablet, my Amazon Fire.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
How about you, Jeffrey?
You guys over there.
Saw your hand.
Yeah, so like before I joined Film Corps, I barely knew what Windows was. I didn't even know I've never heard of Linux before in my life before I joined Film Corps.
I think I saw your hand too, Nithya.
Me, I've never heard of Linux before either, like not even remotely. So it was all new when I joined Film Corps.
Michael.
Cut.
I never heard of Linux before joining the Penguin Corps. Like I've heard of Mac OS, Windows, and the Fire operating system for like the tablets and stuff. I understood that Windows was more, Android was like more open source, but I didn't have any clue what Linux was.
Awesome.
So jumping into our next question, which is why is the Penguin Corps important? I think it's very clear why the Penguin Corps is important, at least from where I'm sitting. But I think what would be helpful is to hear how the Penguin Corp has helped the students, right? And what value they're getting out of it. So let's start. We'll start again. Let's actually go in reverse order this time. We'll start with Nithya and go backwards. How's that? So to sum it up into a smaller question, how is the Penguin Corps helping you?
I think the Penguin Corps is a one-in-a-lifetime opportunity because there aren't many other clubs like this. So this is probably one of the only chances I'll get to learn about all this stuff, and it's kind of cool learning about it.
Cool. Once in a lifetime opportunity. Stu, I got to imagine that's pretty rewarding to hear, right?
It really is. And getting to hear stuff like that has been one of the highlights of the job.
Jeffrey, what about you?
Yeah, like same thing as Nithya, like when everything went distance, like it was really hard. And I really like my one-to-one laptop. It helps me a lot with my schoolwork.
And you got one of those from us?
I don't remember.
Did it have the sticker on it that had the Penguin Core logo on
I
it?
don't think so.
Oh, okay.
I know for me, like, I liked computers and stuff, but when I joined Penguin Corp, I got to meet Michael, and it helped me learn more about computers with being friends with Michael and just being in the Penguin Corp, because I knew like nothing, and like I wanted a cool computer, but then going into Penguin Corp, I really learned more about software and hardware, and then having friends that know more about computers really helped me learn more and get better stuff.
Michael, what about you?
For me, I really, like, when the COVID thing happened, we only had one laptop in our house, and it only worked half of the time. Sometimes it would just shut down every once in a while. And Penguin Core gave
Must have been a
me
Windows
laptop.
machine.
It was.
Yeah.
So we got a machine from the Penguin Core, and it worked great. There was like no difficulties at all. We really liked it. So also Penguin Core has given me more opportunities. I'm getting more into computers. I really enjoy this stuff, as well as it's just helped out our school save money and stuff.
So, Michael, let me ask you this. The computer that the Penguin Core gave you at home, is that your computer? You're using it solely, or is it like a family computer? Everybody in the house is using it?
Well, it was like a temporary release during distance learning, and
Okay.
we gave out like 300 of them, so kids
Oh, wow.
would be able to use them. Once the COVID pandemic, it was like a thing only for the distance learning. Once distance learning ended, we got most of the computers back, and we gave away like the desktop computers that people could keep for at home.
Got
Which
it.
is pretty
Yeah.
cool.
I was just trying to figure out if other people in your household were using it, what their reaction to Linux was.
They were very happy about it. They were stoked. They enjoyed it. It was very easy.
And they had a pro with you to be able to say like, hey, how do I do this? Oh, we'll just do it this way, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, Rania, you are last. Go ahead.
So, unlike these guys, my dad actually bought me a computer from Best Buy before the whole when it was announced that we'd be doing distance learning. So I didn't get a chance to use Linux at home. But like the way the Penguin Core has affected me is it gave me like a bigger like thing into like computers overall. Like, so it was like I just thought computer was like, okay, I will go into this specific program and type in few words, or click the things in like that like, you know those like games like on the Cody.org where you like click the things together to make the guy move? I just thought it was all that in some typing. But then like once I got introduced into Linux, I realized, oh wow, a computer doesn't work with just a bunch of buttons. Wow, that changed my entire worldview.
Gave you a new perspective, huh?
Yeah. I thought it was just like, clicking blocks together and typing in a few words. But then I realized it isn't just clicking buttons. There isn't any clicking buttons. You have to type in words.
So you're all pretty good at typing, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, they're good at it. Yeah.
So
I have a question here.
Go ahead.
Cam mentioned a few minutes ago that he met Michael, I think, through this club, and I'm wondering about the friendships you guys have created. Did you all know each other?
Me and Michael have been together since kindergarten, but
We just really didn't talk.
5th grade we met, but then 6th grade, once it really started going and we really had to work in the lab more, it's like that our friendship developed quite a bit more. Now we're in almost every class together.
So you guys have built friendships through this club as well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Does that go for everybody?
I think so. I mean, I've been watching a lot of these relationships just sort of like start and blossom and develop for the last 2.5 years. It's been really awesome to see. And some kids that maybe had limited connections at school, this gave them an opportunity to get plugged in and get to know other kids.
So just out of curiosity.
It is interesting. It is, just to follow up, it is interesting because the three of us who are hosting this podcast and have done it for 8 years, we met each other through technology as well. It was technology that brought us together, and we've built these friendships that have lasted quite a long time. So I expect that will be the same for you guys as you grow up.
Just out of curiosity, show of hands. Obviously, you are working on Linux now. You're in the Penguin Corps. How many of you want to get jobs related to computers when you grow up? 2, 3, still trying to figure it out. That's fine. You don't have to. You don't have to have an idea
there.
You don't have to have an idea now. I was just curious if anybody was really like, "Oh, me, I want to do this or that."
Well, and something that I've tried to emphasize to the kids in my tech electives and through the Penguin Corps is that you can't even say in the future anymore. I mean, right now, almost all jobs are technology jobs because all of them involve using technology in the workplace in some capacity. It wasn't like that when I got my first job, but it certainly is that way now.
Yeah, I think you guys will find that two of the most valuable things that you're probably learning. One is how to Google a problem properly and find a solution. I mean, as a web developer, half my job is Stack Overflow. Sometimes it feels like. And the second thing is kind of that you guys haven't used this word, but I've heard it a bit, is demystification. So like knowing that there's something under the hood that you can learn that, knowing that it's learnable helps, tackle problems and find solutions.
Oh, absolutely. It's like, this can be fixed. We just have to figure out how.
So I want to shift gears a bit here, and we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but I want to dive in a little bit more into the digital divide that kind of really has been highlighted by the pandemic. You guys have really experienced some pretty dramatic changes going from in-person learning to digital distance learning and back. And if anything, current news is an indication a lot of people are going back to distance learning. I'm curious about the decision for the Penguin Corps to kind of step up and what you guys' perspective is on that and how you help solve that problem for your community.
Well, just the way that it happened was we started all in 2019, the 2019-2020 school year, and we had made a project out of recycling desktop computers to give away because that's what I had that we could spare. And in about 6 months, we gave away 5 or 6 computers. Okay. Savage is an affluent suburb, and we really just have a smaller percentage of kids that are on free or reduced price lunch, which is a common indicator for poverty at a school. So not that many people had come to us. I thought, well, I guess we don't have that big of a divide here. That's, we're good job, guys, we're done. And then the pandemic hit, and the school came to us, specifically to me, and then I related to the kids and said, okay, kids are going to have to learn at home. We have to start getting as many computers ready to leave as possible. And we did not really have a large supply of things that the school wanted to hand out. In fact, we really didn't have that large of a supply of computers at the time anyway. So we started off with recycling ones that they were sitting on a shelf in like the server room. And then we were planning on getting, these are ones that were ready for the recycler. The school was done with these things. And we started off with that. They were supposed to go to a science teacher down the hall. We were going to give them to her. And then this happened. So we started getting those ready and we started surveying the families to find out how many kids actually need a computer. And that's when we found out exactly how big of a divide we actually had. I mean, under normal conditions, if you have 4 kids at home and occasionally they need to do something on the computer for school, one computer for the 4 of them, that ought to do it. But when all of a sudden, all of them are home all day and they have to attend classes online, that's not close to enough.
And the parents are working from home for the first time too. Yeah.
Exactly. So in the spring of 2020, we started taking in donations of computers. I was making appeals on social media. The school was. Then we got a little blurb in the St. Paul Pioneer Press about it, and computers started to come in. I was recycling them at home at that point because the kids we were full distance at the time and they weren't available anymore. But they helped me out before they closed. And I mean, we were like right up until the end of that last day.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in my room, like, coming in, let's get a few more ready, because you guys are about to get on the bus kind of thing. And in about 6 or 7 weeks, we handed out 60 computers. And we thought, wow, we're doing great. And the classes were asynchronous. So most teachers were just posting lessons to the web and kids would just do them when it was convenient. So kids could share computers then. We come back in the fall. 2 days before the teachers report back to work, we're told by the state that we can't go face-to-face. We have to go hybrid. And the school wants synchronous classes, which means now every single kid needs a computer. And we started taking in donations again. I got a bunch ready before school started. And then once the kids came back to school, then they started pitching in. And back then it was like, of this group, Michael and Cam were among the ones that were working on that. And then later in the year, Jeffrey, Rania, and Nithya joined in. But in about 5 weeks, last week of August up to the first week of October, that's about 6, I guess, we handed out over 300.
Wow.
And because we were using computers that had been donated and ones that we purchased used from the state surplus store, so we weren't doing anything with new computers, we were able to keep the cost of the whole thing for the school way down. I actually went and crunched the numbers based upon the Chromebooks that we're using in classes right now, the new ones. If we had tried to do that using that same model machine, we would have spent over $160,000. We did it for less than $7,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
I remember talking with you, and I think it was for all 8 of the carts, it was like almost $100,000. And yet we have done our entire thing and given out well over 300 computers and have all our computers in the back. I think we were under $8,000.
Yeah, about that. Yeah. So we've kept this thing, so affordable. We're all of us are still scratching our heads going, why are we the only ones doing this? But we made it happen, and I couldn't have done it without these guys.
So before we move on to the next part of this question, I'm curious from the students' perspective. We've talked about it a few times where they're setting up the computers, installing it. I mean, I imagine you guys are getting it down to a science by now. How long does it take you guys to get a computer ready for distribution? Can you maybe talk a little bit about what that looks like?
Usually it's kind of off and on, but I mean, with the current skills that everyone has, we could probably get about an entire computer done with everything on it, maybe about an hour, if not
In
less.
an hour?
Probably less.
Yeah, probably less.
Yeah, it sounds about right. Yeah.
So you do some math there, and the listeners can do it on their own though. 5 kids, an hour each, 5 laptops, give them 8 hours, and you got yourself like a whole classroom of laptops right there, right? Not that you guys are doing that for 8 hours a day, but
Interesting. Would you rather be in here working on the
300
computers rather than being in like math or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there it goes.
Yeah. Well, math's going to be kind of important later on.
Yeah, don't tell the math teachers I said that. Okay.
Steven, you had a question?
No, I was also looking at the math myself too and thinking 300 computers you delivered, an hour a piece is 300 hours of labor to get them set up, which is not a small task.
You say labor, I say open source contribution. I mean, you guys are all contributing to your community, right? You're, in my mind, you're in the same category as frontline workers, right? You're there helping your community be able to weather the pandemic and be able to function at their home on their own. So, I mean, I think there's a lot to be said for that.
Michael.
Oh, what we did to save a bunch of time was like every single person would work on a few, like not just one computer, but like 2 or 3 at a time, multitasking. Which
Michael, don't tell your manager that. He's gonna expect more out of you.
Or like with a lot of those computers, Mr. Keroff did over the summer, and then he'd have a few kids come to the school over the summer. But like Mr. Keroff definitely helped quite a bit, but definitely having an entire club of kids definitely does help.
Oh, absolutely. It couldn't have been done without it. Yeah.
And just because I'm a Linux dummy, I mean, are you guys installing this from like a thumb drive? Is that the idea?
We did, but now we have a bunch of Ethernet cables, and we are actually copying over the system.
Oh, you're booting over Ethernet. That's fancy.
We finally learned how to use Clonezilla here. So we've been using that, and that sped the process way up, especially when we had to start. You can't see it in this shot, but over my shoulder here, up by the wall, there's a cart that's loaded all the way up with a bunch of laptops. We actually we're full face-to-face right now. So all the kids are attending school here. We're not doing distance learning at the moment. We have to have a supply of computers that are ready to leave the building if we have to convert to distance learning. And based upon COVID numbers that we're seeing in our county, that theoretically could happen. So we made a big project out of making sure that every last thing that looks like it'll actually boot up, make sure you get it configured with the apps and get it on that cart so it's ready to go. So
Stu, question about that. Are you also responsible for you logging in, logging out, and like serializing each laptop to make sure that like it's accounted for and you know who has it? Or are you just simply getting them ready to go and then some administration's dealing with the
I can
kind
go
of
grab one right now and show we have multiple kids.
Whoa, you just
and we can still hear you guys. It's amazing.
Oh,
it's like
that's awesome.
It's like that thing is foolproof.
Yeah.
You gotta look where you're going.
Okay.
We have multiple, so we'll have multiple kids. So we of course have our sticker, but then we also have a serial sticker, and we'll just have multiple kids sticking the stickers on, cleaning the computers, and then sticking some tape over.
Yeah, we did that like
Yeah. So we assign each one a number. And then we'll make sure that we go into the settings on the computer so the number's recorded inside too in case the sticker falls off.
Oh, okay.
And then we put together like a Google sheet upstairs that our office people will be using in the event that stuff has to leave the building. And then as it leaves, then it's like, okay, this particular laptop, it has this number. It was checked out to this kid. Here's here's the mom's name. Here's the date that it left. And then we have another column for when it's returned and what condition it's returned in. So yeah, we do have some ways of tracking that once it happens.
Got it. So you guys are responsible for the tracking as well as the preparation.
That's correct. That's correct.
Got it.
We had to have a hand in both of those things. Because last year, we were handing that stuff out so quickly that the idea of tracking it in any meaningful way was almost an afterthought. It's like, we have a list of people who have computers from us, apparently. I couldn't tell you what they have, but we handed them something that day. And so this year we had to improve that system. So we have something better in place now.
I'm actually, before we move on, I'm kind of curious about what support has looked like, both hardware and software, because you're handing, like, Linux, of course, especially Ubuntu, Papa OS, they've come a long way. It's a lot easier as an interface for people that are kind of new to it. But what kind of training are you providing people? What kind of support are you providing people when they get the computer? Or are most people just able to just like log in and get started?
Well, with the kids, we try to make sure that they know how to log in, because most of what they're going to be doing is browser based. So we need to make sure that they can sync their accounts and their data into the Google Chrome browser so that they can get all the other things their teachers have for them. But there's other things too. All the kids want to know, how do you change the background? How do you turn the volume up or down? It's like, what do you click on to make sure that I can launch Zoom? So we tried to provide some coaching for those kind of things. We did have like a dedicated tech support email account. So if a parent was struggling with something, there was somebody who was trying to offer them help. Yeah, that was our Spanish teacher across the hall.
Yeah.
She didn't know she was going to be doing that last year. That was pretty cool. She did a great job, by the way, but it's like it caught her off guard at first. So she was like, "I'm doing what?" Okay, so she rolled up her sleeves and she learned how to use Linux. So
did she combine Spanish lessons with the tech support? Did she just?
She didn't go that far. She didn't, and she wasn't writing the emails in Spanish either. So, but then there were some times when you had a computer that something on it wasn't working. The parents couldn't figure it out, and so it was okay. Bring it back. Trade in for another one. And the important thing was just make sure that those kids had something at home that worked. So we had to keep a steady supply in the office for people that needed to have something returned. Because I'm not sure if you're aware of this. When you're dealing almost exclusively in used computers, things will go wrong more frequently. That's life. Rocks are hard, water's wet.
We also have to deal with them being sticky and.
Oh, yeah. Oh, good. Yeah.
With a Clorox
talk
wipe
about
shortage, that's not great, right?
Yeah, guys, talk about what they're like when they come back.
They come back and they have like stickiness under the keyboard.
Especially the kindergartners,
Yeah.
they'll put stickers all over them, and then there will be.
Some keys will be missing, some keys will be drawn on.
I don't even know how you get.
Sometimes the screen will even have like some pencil marks on it.
There will be different crumbs just underneath it.
Yeah, food.
There's like
Yeah.
paint on them.
And what?
Yeah.
Things
Yeah.
on the screen.
Mhm.
It doesn't get
So-
better if adults are the ones using.
Yeah, no.
computers. Just as much
Well,
food.
mildly, maybe the keys aren't
Stickers.
missing, but
Yes. So that's one thing that we've had to make just as much of a project of for the ones that were returned last year, getting them ready so that they can go back out. We actually switched everything over to Ubuntu this year. We were using Xubuntu last year.
Oh, really?
And
Okay.
we just, for a variety of reasons, we thought it was the right decision to make. But okay, fine, you guys, here's the software, but yeah, while you're at it, you guys get the Clorox wipes out and see what you can do with this thing, because it's gross. Okay.
So as you guys were taking donation hardware in from the community, I assume companies and individuals, what did you set up any minimum spec requirements for the computers?
We tried to. That doesn't always work. But what we tried to put it out there that we needed, it had to have an Intel i-series processor or AMD equivalent.
Mhm.
It had to be a 64-bit processor, and it had to have 4 gigs of RAM. Now, you take a look at most computers manufactured in the last 8 to 10 years, easily meet all of those things.
Right.
That isn't always what comes in, though. Have you guys seen anything that was older than that or that wouldn't run?
Yeah, for my tech project, we may or may not have destroyed a few computers that were older than the school. So they were like early 2000s, and they had like Intel Pentium stuff.
Any of those using punch cards?
Not quite that old, but
Any Commodores?
We have not seen a Commodore. No,
That was
no,
my
we have
first
not
computer.
seen that. Yeah.
Did
And
one
do
of the
you
computers
guys
use-
prefer desktops or laptops from donations?
If we're talking about stuff being donated, laptops are preferable just because they're far more flexible in what we can do with them.
Right.
If you've got a family that has anywhere from 3 to 6 kids, laptop computers are more practical in their home because they're just going to take up less space. And if you're a teacher who wants to provide computers, even if it's a small set in your classroom, laptops are going to take up less space there too. Now, having said that, we've had people donate desktop computers to us, and yeah, in fact, we have a few. Those, yeah, on the card over
Hiding
there.
behind Nithya.
Yeah, Nithya, lean over a little bit. Yeah, that cart there. Yeah, that one's full of desktops. Those were actually in classrooms. And when the teachers of those classrooms moved over to having laptops, they just said, well, I really don't want these anymore. So
Okay.
those are ones that we'll simply give away. And that was the deal that we made with families was if you ask for a laptop, we will provide one for you free of charge, but it still remains the property of the school and the Penguin Corps. We're going to need it back at the end of the school year. Please understand, because we're going to want to reuse it. If somebody said, I'll take a desktop instead, we were like, okay, it's yours. Yeah, keep it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and so we had between 25 and 30 families just opt for a desktop because they could keep it. You know, it's like, okay, knock yourself out.
Have you made any upgrades to the computers that you brought in-house? Like maybe upgrade to SSDs or increased RAM or anything like that?
I'll let them take that one.
A lot.
We change out the RAM often and change out the hard drives to SSDs, so it doesn't really break while dropping, and because SSDs are more.
I know that from personal experience. I may or may not have wiped a few hard drives from dropping computers, but our one-to-one computers, they all have a minimum of 8 gigs, and me and Michael, he has 12 gigs in his now, and I have 16 gigs in mine. Because we just dig through all the RAM piles and find RAMs that are compatible.
Nice.
So the computers leaving you that you donate, that you put into homes, you've sort of upgraded them to make them sort of a minimum SSD and a minimum RAM spec.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
You know, it's like when we're working with those kind of numbers, you know, if it's a standard hard drive and it works, we're going to send it out the door like that.
Gotcha.
Well, these guys were referring to a special project that we were doing here at school. We're actually doing a case study this year where we're testing the effectiveness of having a one-to-one laptop program that uses Linux, used hardware, and student technicians doing all the work.
Okay.
They're the technicians right there. And each one of these kids has their own laptop through that program. They pick it up in the morning, they take it with them throughout the day, they bring it back at the end of the day, plug it back into the cart, but it's exclusively theirs.
And then we do have a 3-strike policy also.
Oh, yeah. If you forget to bring your laptop back at the end of the day, you get a strike, and then 3 strikes, you're out. So we've only had 3 kids earn a strike though, so we're doing really good with that.
And no kids earn 3 strikes, right?
We haven't had a single one yet. It's that got the point across. So that was, but with that program, and the kids have to complete a survey once every 2 to 3 weeks about their experience with it. And we're going to write a case study paper next summer and hopefully get it published somewhere.
Okay.
Very cool.
I have one more question regarding hardware in terms of synchronous learning. So when you have distance learning and the video becomes a critical part of potentially learning, was that an issue with your school? Did you have to do Zoom real-time learning, and how did that affect your computers that you were delivering to students with or without cameras?
We had to make sure every single computer had cameras. There was this one weird computer where the camera was upside down and no one could figure out how to fix it.
I think I saw that. That one made it to the Senate, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it had been installed that way. We're still not sure how it happened. Yeah.
Oh, that's
And
fine.
then we would supply webcams for the desktops, and we tried to make sure that all of them had cameras, just because the teachers were different than some other schools. Other schools would not want cameras on because it was distracting, but our school, we wanted to make sure that cameras were on so that the students were learning as good as they could.
Okay. Wow. Great.
So, it's clear, obviously you guys have helped the school community, right? You have a program, you're giving, students and staff and families of your school community laptops and desktops. I'm just curious, has the Penguin Corps helped the local community outside of the school community? Are you guys, is there a possibility or an ability for somebody in the community to say, hey, I need a computer, and reach out to the school to get one? Go ahead.
We just donated some computers to a church's after school program because they
Okay.
didn't really have any, and their program they're from Minneapolis, and the kids, you have to walk home after school,
Mhm.
but it's kind of dangerous, so they just stay in the school until their parents can pick them up. And
Got
we
it.
donated how many computers did we donate?
10.
10 computers.
The church, their after-school program is called Antioch House. And it's a drop-in program for latchkey kids who are waiting for their parents to come home from work. And being by themselves in North Minneapolis can be dangerous. So the church was given a place to go, they can get homework help, hang out and stuff, but they needed computers. So they turned to us. And so we just gave them some last, a little over a week ago. Yeah. Now that's one example, and there are others.
Very cool.
So if someone was interested in starting a program like you have there, what are the keys to get that going, Stu?
Michael talks about this one at our conferences. What are the keys to starting?
Computers, student techs, people to run the club, a place to run, approval from administration, and kids who actually want to do the things.
He's done it so much, it's just from memory.
That's impressive.
So it's as we talked about at the top of the show, right, Stu, you have a guide that we'll put the link in the show notes. I'll say it again here just so everybody knows, linuxclubguide.com. So I'm assuming if somebody wanted to start one of these, they could read that and get a pretty good idea how to go about it.
Absolutely. I'm in the process of adding revisions, but right now it's a great place to start. And I was with the guide, I wasn't intending to have all the minutia of how to configure this piece of hardware versus that piece of hardware. I was trying to give people a holistic approach of how does a club like this actually work? How do you fundraise? How do you recruit? How do you learn these things yourself? And so many of the things that Michael's talked about at some of our conferences are also in the guide. So that's I think a pretty good place to begin. And the two biggest things that you need, he listed all 5 or 6 of the things that are important to it, but the two biggest things you need are adults that want to run and manage it, and then just to get the administration to say yes. And getting them to say yes may not be all that hard, but once you have those things, everything else will fall into place. Okay, when people find out that you are running a club that is recycling computers to help people, they will give you computers. We've seen that more times than we can count at this point. I've lost count. We had one company by themselves give us 200 machines.
Oh.
So getting hardware is not an issue.
Oh, goodness, no. People are, they get
Interesting.
so hung up on that, where it's like, oh, where did the computers come from? It's like, where do they not come from? People upgrade all the time, you know?
Did we have Caribou Coffee also donate?
Yeah,
some?
Caribou Coffee donated some Chromebooks.
Mhm,
And
yep.
those are the ones that are in the social studies classroom that we used last year when you were still teaching social studies.
Yeah. Caribou Coffee has
Okay.
donated some, SEH Incorporated, Search Leaders LLC. Those guys, those are the businesses I can think of off the top of my head. There are others.
There's so many.
Yeah,
So I'm curious about this a little bit more. If there's other ways that companies can help, can the Penguin Corp take financial donations to help fill gaps in RAIN
Well,
webcams, that kind of thing?
oh, well, how much do you have?
We want your money.
The short answer is yes, and some people instead of giving us computers have simply written a check and sent it to the school. Now, I don't know if the office has set up anything for people to make electronic donations at this time, but if somebody wants to send us a check or a money order or something like that, that's no problem. It needs to be made out to the school and then on the memo line, just make sure it says Penguin Corp.
And would that be tax deductible or?
Absolutely, yes. We are a 501c3, so that is tax deductible. We may not always remember to send the receipt right away. So if you send us something, make sure you ask for a receipt. We'll make sure you get one.
So
And-
we talked before the show about Raspberry Pis, and the patrons will hear that conversation, but just a high level. Basically, I was asking if you guys were doing any work with Raspberry Pis, and Stu said that he had planned to put some funds in the budget for procuring Raspberry Pis, but obviously those funds kind of got diverted due to the pandemic. If folks wanted to donate Raspberry Pis, would that be helpful? Would that be worthwhile?
Sure.
Older
Yeah.
Raspberry Pis okay, newer Raspberry Pis preferred. What's the preference there?
We would prefer the Raspberry Pi 4s just because they're awesome. But people want to send us older ones so we can tinker with those. I don't have a problem with that. I think that's a great idea.
Or again, listener, if you just prefer to give them some funds to be able to go buy their own Raspberry Pis, you could do that too.
When they become available again.
When they become.
Where's your money?
So we are coming to a close here. I'd like to ask if there's anything else anybody would like to add, anything we didn't cover, anything that we should have asked that we didn't.
How about what's your favorite thing in the club, guys? What's your favorite thing to do?
Hardware.
Mhm.
I liked the software, but I really like hardware more.
I like changing the RAM, changing the storage drives, SSD and hard drives. It's really fun. I really like the hardware aspect of it.
And then me and Michael, we go through the dead computers and we take off all the heat sinks and we take out the CPUs and the GPUs if they did have them.
All right.
Anya, Jeffrey, what's your favorite thing
I
in the
like
club?
distro hopping.
Oh, geez, that's a
Super
fun
fun.
That is
activity.
super fun.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry. What was that?
You say that again?
Distro hopping.
Yeah,
Distro hopping. Got it. Okay. I thought he
Yeah.
said disc. I thought he said disco hopping, and I was like, wait a second. What is this?
Now, we actually designed a lesson just around learning about different distros. And so
Cool.
we'll have like a bowl full of flash drives that are formatted with 4, 5, 6 different distros, and kids will come in, take a flash drive, boot to that flash drive, and click try rather than install, and then just try it out and then complete a worksheet on the experience. And if they have time, they can try a second or even a third one. They love that one. That's a lot of fun.
One of my favorite ones from the distro hopping is for Mac users. It's called Elementary OS. And it is a very Mac-based one. So it's completely open source, but it definitely gives you the feel of a lot of Mac OSs.
And it's
I'll
also
have to
free.
I'll have to check that out, as I am an avid Mac user. I will say I just got into Pop OS, and the recent addition of gestures in Pop OS has been very very comforting to me as a Mac user.
I'm gonna have to try that one. Nithya, what's a favorite activity or a favorite thing in the club?
The distro hopping thing is super fun, but the Jolly Rancher one was also
Jolly
my
Rancher
favorite.
lesson. Yes.
Okay, I have to put a shout out to the people who put together the Floss Desktops for Kids curriculum. The main author is a guy named Patrick Masson when he was still with OSI. Lesson number 3 in their curriculum is hardware identification. And so we have these worksheets printed up with pictures of desktop computer parts, and the kids have to identify them. Well, that was kind of dry, and we wanted to try to make it more fun. So we gamified it, and we said, okay, you and a partner, you're going to work together on this. And for each 5 that you can identify correctly, you get a Jolly Rancher. And all of a sudden it becomes a race because the kids want to get all the Jolly Ranchers. And that is a hit every time we do it. And we even tell them, it's like, look, there's a glossary in the back, have a laptop open and do a Google image search for stuff that you don't recognize so you know what it looks like, and then look for it on the worksheet. And so they have a lot of fun with that.
I got so many Jolly Ranchers.
And then also helping out with the lessons, me and Michael and our friend Sophie, we were in a group, so we got like all of them, but then since we helped out, we would get some extra Jolly Ranchers. And so we would get, of course, the normal amount of Jolly Ranchers, we got all of them, but then we'd also get some extra Jolly Ranchers because we helped other kids.
Nice.
Yeah, when you have a room full of kids all scrambling around looking at worksheets and open computers, because we'd actually have them around the room, open machines all over the place, it gets a little chaotic. So you need extra hands for that one. So some of the kids would step up and say, okay, I don't need to, I've done this lesson, maybe I can help lead it now. So
That would be me and Michael. We've done it. Yeah, every time we've done it.
So, Rania, did you get to answer the question?
Oh, no, not yet.
what's
Go
your favorite
ahead.
thing?
My favorite thing is torn between speaking through in conferences and
Okay.
directing conferences. Like just like being the what it's called, I really cannot remember.
Media specialist.
Media specialist. Like it's fun like telling people your ideas and hearing other people say them and like getting on a piece of paper and like, okay, how do we blend our ideas together in a big old blender of
Okay.
ideas?
She's
Awesome.
proven to be really adept at that. So this year, she's helped out with the behind the scenes production for some of the online conferences that the club has spoken at. And just this year, we've done 2 so far. So
Very cool.
Very cool. All right. Well, we're gonna wrap this thing up. I would like to thank the Penguin Corps for joining us. I will say all of you are really great speakers, and you are making me feel great that the future is bright with the fact that you guys are learning all this great stuff and that you can represent yourselves and your school at this super high level. So you guys should all feel really good about that.
well, thank you very much, and thank you for having us.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks for
you.
having us.
Thank
It was-
you.
it was a fun
Thank you.
It was really fun.
I
You are
like
more
talking.
you are more than welcome. You like talking. That's great. So do you have questions or feedback? Reach out to Talking Drupal on Twitter with the handle Talking Drupal or via email at show@talkingdrupal.com. You can connect with our hosts and other listeners on Drupal Slack in the Talking Drupal channel. If you're interested in show news, upcoming Drupal camps, local meetups, and Chad's Book Corner, sign up for our newsletter at talkingdrupal.com/newsletter.
You can promote your Drupal camp on Talking Drupal. Just learn more at talkingdrupal.com/camp promo.
And thank you, patrons, for supporting Talking Drupal. Your support is greatly appreciated. You can learn more about becoming a patron at talkingdrupal.com and choosing Become a Patron.
Okay. Stu, if folks wanted to learn more about the Penguin Corps or get in touch with you about a donation or setting up their own or all the various topics we talked about today, what's the best way for them to do that?
best way to start would be, I have an email address set up that's just for the Linuxy stuff, and that is studoeslinux@gmail.com. If you send it to my school email, it'll get to me too, and that will work just fine too. That's stu.keroff@aspenacademymn.org. If you wish to see what we're up to, you can also follow us on Twitter, and the Twitter handle is @StuDoesLinux. And please subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. So if you just go to YouTube and search for Penguin Corps, you'll find us.
Okay.
Awesome. Stephen, if people wanted to get a hold of you, how would they do it?
Stephen Cross is the way to go. So @Stephen Cross with a PH on Twitter or stephencross.com.
Nick, what about you?
You can find me pretty much everywhere @NixVan, NICXVAN.
And I'm John Picozzi. You can find me on all the major social networks and Drupal.org @John Picozzi. And you can find out about EPAM at epam.com.
And if you've enjoyed listening, we've enjoyed talking. See you guys next week.
Have a good one, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you guys for joining.
Man, I'm bringing you guys along for every episode. That bye was great.